Welcome, everyone, to another sweet, sweet episode of the Texocity series, presented by 210 Culture and Pop Culture Radio. My name is Donna, and I'm your host. Today, we are talking about the Caffey Family Murders. Erin Caffey, who was one of the daughters of the Caffey family, was the criminal mastermind behind the brutal murder of her entire family. Such a fucking wild case. When I was researching this, I was like, what the fuck? What is going on here? How the fuck did I not know about this? It's pretty fucking interesting. I definitely had no idea why I hadn't heard about this before, but let us pray, bitch, because this is a wild one. It is very heavy. It is packed with information, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Erin Caffey was born July 27th, 1991, and was the firstborn in a family of 5 to mother Penny Caffey and father Terry Caffey. Erin had 2 younger brothers, Matthew Caffey, aka Bubba, and Tyler Caffey. Erin grew up in a Christian household, and her parents were heavily involved with the church they attended. Terry, Erin's father, was actually training to be a minister. It is said that Penny and Terry Caffey met at a revival meeting in Garland, Texas, when she was 21 and he was 24. Their Baptist faith is what had bound them together. It was Jesus, you know? They were like, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit is between us, and yeah, we're all just gonna mesh together. Erin was homeschooled at the age of 13 when her family moved from Alba, Texas to Celeste, Texas to be closer to Miracle Faith, a conservative Baptist church where both of her parents worked as ministers. According to murderpedia.org, side note, this is where I got most of my information from. It is such, like, they were just awesome. I'm going to link it below so that you guys can read all the details, because I did leave some details out because this shit was just too much. Erin's parents were very conservative and protective of their children. They were also heavily devoted to the Baptist church they worked for. But before Erin was homeschooled, when she started the 8th grade, she went to Rains Junior High, a public school, but her parents were disgusted. They were like, no, bitch. When they found out that a girl who was interested in Erin at school tried kissing her in the hallway, Penny and Terry were livid and reacted by, quote, abruptly pulling their children out of school a month into the academic year. And Penny began teaching them a Bible-based curriculum at home, unquote. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to. Erin's parents hoped that this particular instruction would help Erin, who had also been diagnosed with ADD. Hey, welcome to the fam, welcome to the club. And was behind in school compared to her classmates. At the time, bisexuality was a huge no-no in the minds of Erin's parents. Terry, Erin's father, would even comment that, quote, his family was shocked by a culture of bisexuality, unquote, with even blaming bisexual culture for confusing Erin, quote, before she finally veered into the premarital relationship that turned deadly, unquote. Yeah, religion as I grow older is just a Ponzi scheme, y'all. It's a scheme. It's just like fucking Herbalife and shit. But like I said, I'm not going to go into it. Miracle Faith, the Baptist church that Erin's parents worked for, was the center of the Caffey's lives. The family would attend Bible study on Wednesday nights, church service every Sunday, and would even spend hours each week rehearsing gospel songs. The Caffeys were also involved musically at their church. Penny would play the piano. Bubba, Matthew, the brother, would play the guitar and harmonica, and Erin would sing vocals. Tyler, the youngest brother, wasn't too involved in the aspect and preferred to play outside. He's like, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna play outside. This shit ain't for me. Nonetheless, the whole family seemed to share the same devotion to this church. Bubba, aka Matthew, used to share the faith to whoever would listen. And Erin would cry tears of joy when she sang at Sunday service. Sometimes Erin would even stop mid-verse to collect herself. Hey, that shit happens. I remember I was in a church choir, and sometimes like that shit gets to you. It's like, Jesus, I fucking love you. But I'm not like obsessed like that. Todd McGahee, Erin's pastor, even joked, quote, that if he had 5 more of her, he could fill this church on Sundays, unquote. Erin was described as cute, petite, with blue-gray eyes and a flirtatious smile, who thrived on attention. Boys would stop by the church to see her, with many crediting her with a closer relationship to Jesus. She hot, I'm gonna get a closer relationship to Jesus so I can get closer to her, to that ass. It seemed like things were perfect for the family, but Erin, being the social butterfly that she was and attention-seeking, would feel isolated from the outside world other than what she knew at Miracle Faith Baptist Church. Yeah, that definitely would wring my own fucking neck with that shit. Feel like it's just, shoved down your throat so much you tend to just hate it after a while. In July of 2007, when Erin turned 16, she would get her driver's license and gifted an old Chevy pickup and started working at Sonic. One of her coworkers described her as, quote unquote, so sheltered, adding, quote, it was like she was seeing the world for the first time, unquote. During the fall time while Erin was working, a certain boy would visit the Sonic she worked at frequently, Charlie Wilkinson. On Halloween, Charlie finally worked up the courage to ask Erin out, and she was instantly in awe of him. Charlie, too, seemed to be obsessed with Erin as well. Quote, he was totally in love with her and considered her his soulmate, unquote, said Dion Kip Jr., one of Charlie's friends. Quote, Charlie talked about Erin 24/7, unquote. After that night, Charlie would drop by Erin's work every afternoon during Erin's breaks, and at night would hang out at the Caffey's house, making sure Charlie would leave by curfew time. They would talk on the phone frequently, and Charlie even started attending church at Miracle Faith. Damn, another dude closer to Jesus. Who was Charlie Wilkinson? Well, let me tell you, kitty cats. Charlie Wilkinson was just starting his senior year of high school when he met Erin. He was not the most perfect guy taking an interest to Erin. He always seemed to be broke and drove a beat-up old 1991 Ford Explorer that had to be push-started. Hey, don't be hating, y'all. My aunt had a Ford Explorer. And I think it was in 1991 too. That shit, yeah. It's rough. It's a rough time. He had sandy hair and light blue eyes and always wore Wranglers, black cowboy boots, and an oversized Western hat. Yeet, yeet, yeet. When MySpace was a thing, his profile name was Hillbilly. That's not even that bad. When I had my MySpace profile, my name was Beautiful Disaster. All right. Don't laugh so hard. Charlie lived in the country with his dad, stepmother, stepsister, stepbrother, and half-sister. His dad worked at a paper mill outside Dallas, and his mom had moved to Del Rio after her and Charlie's dad divorced. Charlie would only see her once or twice a year. Charlie was planning to go active duty after graduation, but although he wasn't arrested or had any serious offenses, he was very hot-headed, and others knew it was easy to get him upset. All right, back to the story. Yes, Charlie and Erin were madly in love with each other. It was, pretty fucking disgusting. Like, they were like, I fucking love him. One day at a church fellowship meeting, Miracle Faith's new youth director caught Erin making out with Charlie. Several kids had already seen her sitting on a picnic table behind the church, kissing up on Charlie while he put his hand up her shirt to get a feel. When Terry and Penny found out what had happened, they felt extremely embarrassed, with Terry telling her, quote, you're not going to see that boy no more, unquote. In December of that same year, Erin had the courage to ask her parents if she could return to public school. Erin's brothers had re-enrolled already that fall after Bubba, Matthew, complained that he missed his friends. The Caffeys were not opposed to the idea, especially since Penny wanted to free up some time to bring in some shmoney. They agreed to let Erin re-enroll and started school just before Christmas break. Erin and Charlie were inseparable at school. They would eat lunch together, walk down the halls, holding hands. They would even go away to Erin's pickup truck to mess around, play chess and stuff. Come on, people, y'all are disgusting. They just coughed at feels. You know how it goes. Terry started allowing Charlie to take Erin out to dinner, only with the assurance that Charlie would have Erin home no later than 9:30. Erin and Charlie would often go to a friend's house to be alone, and after Christmas, Erin and Charlie would have sex for the first time. For the first time. Woo, woo, woo. Damn, but it was like fireworks, like ba 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 ba. That's how it was. One night while Charlie and Erin were out, Charlie pulled his car over on a country road, got on one knee, and presented Erin with his grandmother's engagement ring. Charlie said to her it was a promise ring and not a proposal, and made sure he was declaring his intentions. A few days later, at a church function, Penny noticed the ring on Erin's finger and demanded she give it back to him. Charlie, during that time, was playing basketball outside the fellowship hall. Terry pulled him aside and said, quote, "This is totally inappropriate," unquote. Charlie shrugged, not really knowing what was going on. Quote, "You're promising yourself to my daughter? Do you realize she is 16 years old?" Unquote. Terry felt uncomfortable with how fast the relationship was moving. Terry was also not very fond of Charlie. He would never get over how nonchalant Charlie was ever since the first time they met. Oftentimes, Terry would come home from work to see Charlie's legs slung over the side of Terry's armchair. Wouldn't bother to stand up or shake his hand. Quote, "I don't like that boy," unquote, Terry would tell Penny frequently. "If he can't show me any respect, how does he treat our daughter?" Unquote, like a slota. That's how. After the incident, the Caffeys limited Erin and Charlie's time to once a week, under their supervision. Erin was furious, telling her aunt that she planned on running away to be with Charlie when she turned 17. Erin and Penny's relationship grew worse as the days passed by. Erin would even call Charlie crying to tell him that Penny had slapped her while they were in a heated argument. One night in February, Penny heard Erin giggling when it was past her phone curfew. She's like, "Bitch, who the fuck?" Erin had sneaked her phone in her room to call Charlie. Penny busts open that door and told Erin she was grounded, taking away her keys and her phone. Erin would be dropped off and picked up from school and stopped letting Charlie come over to the house. She was like, "No, bitch, you get over here. Let me just At Miracle Faith, people sensed tension around the Caffeys. Penny was withdrawn most of the time, declined going on women's church retreats, saying that she needed to spend more time with her family. During church functions, Erin was distracted, preoccupied, and aloof. She even was singing so sucky, this is what I read. She was singing so sucky that her cousin, who doesn't even sing as good as her, was like outshining her each time because the parents were being so strict with her and Charlie's relationship. Erin began alluding to the idea that killing her parents was their best option at being together. She would talk about the idea a lot. She would bring up the subject at school once or twice a day, with even a classmate overhearing Erin tell Charlie that killing her parents was the only way. Charlie, being almost 18, wanted to be with Erin so bad and promised to do whatever to make her happy. To Charlie, Erin was someone he wanted to rescue. He seemed hesitant of Erin's plan to murder her parents. He really only wanted to run away with Erin or even get her pregnant just so her parents would accept him. But Erin was insistent. She was too young to have a baby, and as long as her parents were alive, they would continue to keep them apart. On February 27th, the Caffeys demanded for Erin to break up with Charlie. Earlier that day, Penny decided to stop by the local library to go online and take a look at Charlie's MySpace profile. Her sister had made the suggestion to her to look at Charlie's MySpace, and on Charlie's MySpace, there were comments about the two of them having sex and getting drunk. When Erin came home from school, her mom and dad were already waiting for her in the living room. Terry proceeds to tell her, quote unquote, "It's over." Quote, "You're breaking up with him today. I mean, it's over now," unquote. Surprisingly, Erin did not argue. She confessed that she had wanted to break things off with Charlie for a while, but didn't know how. Erin promised them before they left for Bible study that she would end things with Charlie. And then from there, she was just the mastermind planning all their murders. This is the night of the murders from the perspective of Terry, the dad, because Terry did survive, from Penny, Matthew, and Tyler. So March 1st, 2008. Charlie, together with two other friends, Charles Allen Wade and Bobby Gail Johnson, pull up to the Caffey house, and Erin runs outside to meet them in her pajamas and sits in the car while Charlie and Wade enter the house. It was around 2 a.m. when they entered the house and burst into Terry and Penny's room, opening fire and shooting Terry several times. Quote, not only did they come in shooting, they also came in with a samurai sword, unquote, adds Terry. After shooting Penny, they shoot Terry in the back 3 more times and once in the back of his leg. In total, Terry had been shot 11 times. He couldn't feel the right side of his body and couldn't get any words out of his mouth. It felt like he had been shot in the face. Afterwards, one of them takes a samurai sword and stabs Penny in the back, nearly decapitating her. All the while, Terry was going in and out of consciousness. All he could think about were his children sleeping upstairs, unaware that Erin was waiting outside the house in the fucking car. Panic began to set, and as he was trying to get up, he could hear Matthew, aka Bubba, crying. He heard Matthew yell, "No, Charlie, no, why are you doing this?" As soon as Terry heard the name, he knew exactly who was in his house doing all this fucked up shit. He then hears gunfire and tries even harder to get up, but the blood rushes to his head and he collapses. Tyler, the youngest brother, was hiding in the closet. Charlie and Wade find Tyler after shooting Matthew and take turns stabbing Tyler with their samurai sword. When Terry begins to gain consciousness again, he sees fire all around him. Charlie and Wade had gone throughout the house setting fire to all the furniture. Quote, I knew I wasn't able to get upstairs because the flames were just pushing me back into the bedroom, so I crawled on the bed and found Penny. She was already gone. I finally managed to crawl out of our bathroom window and then drag myself away from the house, unquote. Terry explains. When police and firefighters arrived on the scene, they struggled for several hours to put out the flames. The house had burned down to its foundation. About 2 hours from the beginning of the attack, Tyler was able to crawl 300 yards through the woods to his neighbor Tommy Gaston's house. Gaston calls 911 with the operator asking him where Terry was bleeding. Gaston says, quote, where isn't he bleeding from? It's a miracle he's here at all, unquote. Investigator Richard Allman arrived at Tom Gaston's house before the ambulance pulled away with Terry inside and climbed in the back. Quote, I don't think I'm going to make it, unquote, Terry says to investigator Allman. Allman would ask Terry some questions and Terry tries to explain how he and Penny had demanded Erin to stop seeing Charlie and he had broken into the house to shoot him and his family as they slept. Investigator Allman immediately climbs out of the ambulance and lets Chief Deputy Kurt Fisher know what he had learned. Terry was taken to East Texas Medical Center in Tyler and was admitted to the critical care unit. Being a small community, Fisher was disappointed at the news he heard from Allman. His own kids were friends with Charlie and Wade and had hung out with them multiple times. Fisher even remembered that he saw Charlie's car parked outside Wade's older brother's trailer while driving to the crime scene. Fisher and Sheriff Deputy Ed Emig, sorry if I mispronounced that, pulled outside the single wide trailer. All the lights were out. Fisher knocked on the door and a groggy teenager Fisher didn't recognize answered the door. The teenager said that he wasn't sure if Charlie had spent the night, but let the officers in. Fisher slowly went into each room, stepping over piles of dirty clothes and empty beer cans. He comes across Wade and Bobby and startles them from their sleep. Fisher tells him he needs to talk to Charlie Wilkinson, but no answer. He continues down the hall where he finds a blanket covering an empty doorframe. As he pulls the blanket back, he shines his flashlight inside, and lo and behold, Charlie was there lying on his dirty-ass mattress. He was awake, wearing only blue jeans, and a semi-automatic handgun was laying on the floor next to him. Charlie was handcuffed and sat on the porch. Fisher read him his Miranda rights and was told he was being taken in for questioning. He explains to him how the Caffey family had been attacked and killed earlier in the morning. As soon as he finished, Charlie hung his head and was quiet. Deputy Emig went in to get Charlie's boots and a shirt, and Charlie got in the squad car, staring out the window in silence as they drove through the woods. Damn, he was like, they got me. These motherfuckers got me. Later that day, after the flames were contained, they were able to pull the bodies of Matthew and Tyler from the rubble. One firefighter even fell to his knees, overcome with emotion. Fisher obtained a search warrant from the Justice of the Peace and went back to the trailer to gather any evidence. In the living room, he finds a camouflage-colored purse with a driver's license in it that belonged to Miss Erin Caffey. He went back into the room he found Charlie and pulled the blanket off that was covering a window since there wasn't an overhead light. Shell casings were scattered all over the floor across the carpet, and next to the mattress sat a box of ammunition. Fisher picked up a shirt to move it, and a used condom fell to the floor. A la verga. Well, at least they were using protection. Fisher proceeds to lift up a blanket that was piled on the floor near the closet and notices some blonde hair. He freaked out and thought he had found a doll, but to his surprise, when he pushes the hair aside, he found Erin sitting with her back to the wall in a fetal position. Fisher drew his gun and commanded Erin to show him her hands, but she just stared at him. Quote, "What's your name?" unquote, Fisher asked. Quote, "Erin," unquote, Erin stammers, and Fisher immediately recognized her from the driver's license photo. Fisher brings her into the living room and sits down next to Matthew Wade and his girlfriend on the couch. Fisher had already let the couple know about the Caffey family being dead, and Wade stares at Erin in disbelief and confirms that she was Erin Caffey. "How did you get here?" Fisher asks Erin. Erin stands up, wide-eyed in her pajamas, and looks around the living room and says, "I don't know. Where am I?" Fisher asks her again if she was Erin Caffey, and Erin nods. She looks sick, like she was about to throw up. She kept looking around the trailer as if she was disoriented, and Fisher was kind of sus that she might be under the influence of some kind of drug. "Can you tell me what happened?" Fisher asked, but all Erin could say was fire. Erin was taken by ambulance to Hopkins County Memorial Hospital in Sulphur Springs, where she was given a full medical exam. She was even questioned by Shanna Sanders in the hospital's trauma room. Sanders was chief of police for Rains Independent School District and knew most of the students. Sanders would ask Erin what happened, but Erin was playing the game. She was timid and turned on her childlike voice. She offered few details, seemed confused, repeatedly saying there had been 2 guys with swords, dressed in black, ordering her to get down on the floor. She said they made her drink some stuff that was offered to her at the trailer and couldn't recall anything afterwards. She had tears in her eyes, but other than that, showed little to no emotion. When Sanders asked if she had anything else to say, she whispered, "They're coming after me." Shut your bitch ass up. Man, pisses me off. She knew what the fuck she was doing. Erin's maternal grandmother went to the hospital to visit Erin and was given some privacy. Erin's grandmother then tells her that Terry, her father, had survived the attack. After 5 hours being in the hospital, Erin was finally released, and she, her grandmother, and 2 officers paid a visit to Terry at the East Texas Medical Center. Now, during this time, Charlie was being questioned at the sheriff's office in Emory. Investigator Alman led the interrogation while Texas Ranger John Vance assisted. Alman, just to give you guys a description, was a Navy veteran, super intense and plain spoken. At the outset, Charlie muttered, "I'm in a lot of trouble." Alman begins the interrogation by letting Charlie know that he had been identified by a victim who survived the attack, and asked to tell him exactly what happened the previous night. If Charlie wasn't startled by the news that he had left behind a witness, he would not have given himself away. Charlie slowly began to give out information. Now, this is the day before and the night of the murders through Charlie's perspective. Charlie said Erin had called him the day before. Quote, "She was still pretty pissed off about her parents telling us we could not see each other," unquote, and brought up once again that she wanted them dead. Charlie urged her for them to just run away, but Erin firmly said, "No, kill them." He tells Alman that around 1:30 a.m. he and friend Wade had gone to the Caffey house. He didn't want to reveal that it was Wade but eventually ratted him out. Wade agreed to do this because he needed money, and Charlie promised him $2,000 if he would help. That cash would be found in a lockbox inside the Caffey house. At least that's what Erin said to Charlie. Bobby, Wade's girlfriend, didn't know what was happening but wanted to come along for the ride. As they pulled up to the Caffey house, they heard the dog barking so much that they decided to leave, but Erin called Charlie and promised to keep the dog quiet if they returned. Of course, they went back and picked up Erin at the end of the driveway and rode around for an hour, talking about what to do. Charlie pleaded to Erin for them to consider running away instead, but she was so illusioned at the thought of wanting her parents dead. They finally turned back to the Caffey house and parked down the road. The agreement was that Wade would kill the brothers to leave no witnesses behind. Quote, "I ain't got no conscience," unquote, says Charlie about his decision to follow through on Erin's wishes. As for her parents, he said, quote, "I intended to kill them because I thought I was in love," unquote. The girls stayed in the car while he and Wade went inside and attacked the Caffeys. After the killing spree, Charlie told detectives that he had carried a suitcase of Erin's shit, which she had previously packed, out to the car. He remembers her seeming happy. She even smiled and said, "I'm glad it's over." What a fucked up bitch, god damn it. He and Wade went back to get the lock box, which Charlie opened, and inside the amount of stuff only equal to $375 and some change. I would be livid. I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? $375 and some change for this bullshit? After that is when both boys used their pocket lighters to set fire to the furniture, clothes, and bed sheets. They hurried down the gravel road from the Caffey house, seeing the house was ablaze. They drove down the back roads for a while to blow off steam and calm down. Wade then dropped Charlie and Erin off at the trailer where they had sex after. Quote unquote, "I hope that God forgives me," Charlie added. "You are a piece of shit. Both of y'all are pieces of shit." After hearing the information Charlie provided and learning that the results of the toxicology test Erin had been screened for came back negative, all three other accomplices were arrested. Bobby Johnson was picked up outside the restaurant where she worked, and Charles Wade was pulled over since he was driving her car. That afternoon in the sheriff's office, Bobby played dumb with the officers until they told her that Wade and Charlie were in custody. To then, she admitted to police whatever she knew. Wade was the one who spent the most time not talking until he finally confessed under Almond's relentless questioning. Bobby and Wade's detailed accounts were consistent with Charlie's, but before the conclusion of the interview, Wade added a detail to the story that Charlie had left out. As they had driven away from the burning house, he said Erin cried out, "Holy shit, that was awesome." This bitch. Can we just slap her? Can we just all take turns slapping the fuck out of her? Remember how I said during the time of this interrogation, Erin was being driven by her grandparents and two officers to Tyler to see her dad? Well, kitty cats. Sanders' phone rings, and it was Fisher letting her know that Erin had implicated the Caffey murders and she needed to be placed under arrest. It was dead silent on Sanders' end. Sanders passed the phone to the other officer, Officer Booth. When Fisher gives him the information, Booth asks, "You want us to do what?" Sanders pulls her squad car into a parking lot and Erin's grandparents follow. She informs them that she has to arrest Erin in connection with the Caffey murders and requests for Erin to get out of the car. Erin steps out and the grandma gets hysterical. She grabs Erin's face and asks her, demands her, "Did you have any part of this?" Erin begins to cry and replies, "No, Grandma." So Erin, being a juvenile, she couldn't be taken directly to the sheriff's office for questioning. So she appeared that afternoon before a justice of the peace. The judge informed Erin of her rights and asked if she would be willing to speak with investigators. Erin declines and says she would rather make a written statement instead. Erin writes down what she had told Sanders and was taken to the juvenile detention center in Greenville, where she was held on charges of capital murder. In less than 24 hours after the murders, Wade, Bobby, Charlie, and Erin were all in custody. All four eventually pleaded guilty, with Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade getting life sentences without the possibility of parole. Bobby Gail Johnson was sentenced to 40 years in prison, and the criminal mastermind, Miss Erin Caffey, was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 25 years. She will not be eligible for parole until she serves 40 years of her sentence. And as far as Terry Caffey, during the trial, they really wanted for all 4 of them to get the death penalty. But Terry Caffey did not want that at all, especially for his daughter. Terry Caffey says that he forgives them for what they did, and even makes the 3-hour trip to Gatesville, where Erin is incarcerated, to go see her every month. Terry currently lives in Wills Point, 30 miles southwest of Alba, just down the road from the cemetery Penny, Matthew, and Tyler are buried. He became an ordained minister and gives his testimony most weekends at local churches, using his family story as a lesson in forgiveness. He even remarried to Sandra Webb, a divorcee he met in the course of his work as a home health aide. Webb has 2 sons that they both take care of. That's a story of the Caffey family murders. He's so strong to forgive them. And I know forgiveness has more to do on yourself than really on other people. But even then, I mean, kudos to him for still having that love for his daughter and visiting her and still taking care of her outside. I know many people wouldn't do that. I don't know if I would be able to do that personally, just because, you know, she was the criminal mastermind and she planned this and she took my family away from me. Not that she's not family. I also feel very strongly of parents just being so strict with their children, especially shoving shit like that down their throats. I know, because I lived it. I wasn't angry to a certain degree that I wanted to kill my family, but there were times where I wanted to run away. And it's just that balance of, yes, you have to be a parent and you have to be protective of your child, but also not to the point where you're going to be strict and you're just gonna not let them socialize, not let them live their life. It's a hard balance, and I understand. But I feel like if they just listen and validated to her needs and her wants, and there was some kind of compromise, I think things would have worked out a little bit better. But, you know, it is what it is. We can't change shit now. Let me know what you guys want to listen to next. And thank you so much for listening. And subscribe on YouTube to 210 Culture and Pop Culture Radio. I also just got an Instagram. Yes, thank you very much. I just got an Instagram. It's Texocity _ I'm excited to continue with this, and I love you guys so much. All like 3 of my listeners. Thank you so much. I do it for you. So yeah, I will see you guys later.